I always tried to find the answer on the outside, but I realized it was inside, that we were created to be happy, joyous, and free. We were created not to be compulsiveness towards our addictions, whether it's drugs, food, alcohol, whatever it is, or people. We create an image of a higher power. It's really true, because if you look at our bodies physically, they're made in perfection. The heart beats perfectly. The breathing is perfect. The only problem is that we get in our own way. God gave us this ability to think on the intellectual level. We're talking again in the beginning about it being a simple program for us complicated people, right? Being a simple program for us complicated people. So we try to complicate everything, and that's when we get in our own way. We try to complicate it when it comes to our addictions. Again, going right to that, and the steps tell us to get out of the self, to look at life, have that new pair of glasses through the indwelling consciousness. Do you think you created to eat all this food? We eat all this food to make ourselves happy. We have all of these addictions, whether it's drugs or alcohol. We're looking in the wrong place. We're looking at material things to make us happy. But the real joy and the real consciousness is inside. So when we realize what we're trying to get on the outside from our addictions we have on the inside, then we stop looking for the addictive things on the outside. So we have a solution here. The steps tells us we have a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. Very quickly, step 1 says we're powerless, but we're constantly trying to take the power back. Again, with our addictions, we're trying to control it. We get in what I like to call the zone. The zone is like being one with everything. When we get centered and feel good about ourselves, we wouldn't want all of these gloopy foods and drinks and everything. We want the clarity coming from a higher power, higher consciousness. I always bring up the water. What more would you want rather than these man-made drinks, which are like 600,000 calories? After a while, this tastes so delicious, you wouldn't want it any other way. And I also always bring the fruit here. But they're vegetables. God's gifted all the colored vegetables. You got the broccoli, the spinach, carrots. All of these things, you can name a million of them. My whole diet, I ate whole food, plant-based. But again, just so everybody here who has a different type of way of doing it, it's what we put on the food today that's the problem. But we need that perception change. There's no other way out of this. And again, our true selves, when we get centered. But okay, let me just show you first. I got the my orange and apple here, right? And again, all the vegetables, they're in the refrigerator. I didn't bring them out. And I also have a banana here. So these are God's gift. What could be more perfection than this? What could be better than an apple and orange? They have all the vitamins in it. All the synthetic vitamins these have like 1,000 micronutrients and vitamins in them, and they have all the fiber, everything healthy. And if you don't believe that it's the food's the problem, how come we have so many more diseases today and so many problems? Type 2 diabetes, heart disease, all of these issues and all of these problems. Why is that? It's the food. That's the only thing that changed. And it's the corporations who make the food, and we believe the lie that they tell us. So our true selves, when we get centered, like little children, they're happy, right, when they go out and play. But also when they're really small, you try to feed them some of these crazy foods that are in the jars. And a lot of times they spit it out. They like the water. They like vegetables. Really, when they're really young, before we corrupt them. If you like the video and want to spread the message, press the like and subscribe button. Thank you. That's our way to be. And Doc's opinion knows the true from the false. Now, when we're in our addiction, the only way we know life is through drinking alcohol, taking drugs, or taking food as our main drug. That's our normal way of living, but it's not the true way. So the only way out of this whole problem, out of the quicksand, like Bill talks about in his story, he was in quicksand, was all around him. The quicksand of your compulsions, of your depression, being upset. There's only one solution, a spiritual solution. That means a whole perception change. 12 steps, it's a whole creative way of looking and being reborn and thinking. But actually, it was in us, that thinking all the time, the surrendering. We get back to our true selves. And again, anybody just coming on, let's read on page 64. It says, when the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. When you're straightened out mentally, then the physical allergy of the body doesn't mean anything, because you don't go for those addictive things, whether it's alcohol, drugs, or food. So they say we have an allergy of the body, but if the mind is straightened out, then it says in a big book, it becomes academic about the allergy. You got to remember, though, when we talk about an allergy here, How much crazier is the allergy when the corporations are making the foods directly to get us addicted in our allergy? The chemicals that are in there make us very, very allergic. And use examples like if you have hay fever or something and somebody comes to your house and sprinkles pollen all over the house. That's what these corporations do. You want to live that lie? Do you want to give your money to them so they can make you fat, sick, and unhealthy? When you have the perception change, when you see the true from the false, when you realize that the glory is here, this alone, I say the spiritual awakening is with the water. Because during the week, if you just drink this as your main source, to me it's so delicious when I taste it. I don't drink like some people said I have to drink gallons a day and they gulp it down. Every sip I taste, it tastes delicious to me. And I was telling you, I used to like it cold. Now I love it warm. That's more natural. Just the taste of it. That's all I drink as far as a beverage. And that alone, it saves me how many calories, people drink with beverages. But also the beverages also clog up your palate because you're eating all the synthetic stuff they put in there, the sugars and the diet sodas. People say, oh, that's a good diet food. It's the worst because it's corrupting. Not only does it have the sweeteners in it, but also has other chemicals in it that stimulate the brain. One of them, of course, as you know, is caffeine, but also has other chemicals that go right to your brain, the pleasure centers where the dopamine is released, right? The hormones and all of these things that they created. They have scientists and doctors all day long and psychologists figuring out with the packaging. Don't forget that in the commercials on TV. So do you want to live the big lie? Do you want to be a prisoner of all of this? Or do you want to see the truth? Getting centered will open us up to become one with God's gift of the food. It really works. Look, a lot of people, they just, even been in the program for years, they say, what's the connection between, and I have here the 12 steps, which is my diet program, and their addiction to food. I didn't get it for a long time, but it's all about that being centered. It's just like when we're centered, we don't have to go for the joy is here. We're looking, not only with the food, everything on the outside. So when we can see, intuitively we'll know, right? And we always read here the 10-step promises. It says we won't even, let me just go to that quickly. I know I'm jumping all over the place. I have a lot I want to say. And of course, getting to have a lot of people on the meeting tonight. I want to hear the people having to share what everybody has to say. And it's amazing when you listen to what everybody has to say here and how the recovery. So anyway, on page 85, it's directly related. So this is what happens. When I get to my true self, when I'm centered, and I knew I put on that new pair of glasses, right? And I let go. All of these things the steps talks about. When I'm reborn in my thinking towards the food, being born again, the old self has to do it. We all the time we eat to live. Don't live your life just to eat food. That's what we do. We're very finite in the food. We come home, we close the shades, we eat. Or even with the alcohol, I used to drink in one hand and have the food in the other hand. Right? And then worry about people would think about me with my brain. So, I was a mess. I was wondering why, like Bill said, there was quicksand all around me. I couldn't find my way out. Of course, the way out for me was trying to control the diet. I was trying to control the alcohol and people, trying to control if I could only get them to act the way I feel they should. Step one said I was powerless. So step one alone, if you've been in this program a long time, if you're miserable, if you like the video and want to spread the message, press the like and subscribe button. Thank you. And you're still trying to control it. If 95% of your diets have failed because you haven't changed the perception, if you're still addicted to drugs or alcohol, or if you're still addicted to what people say or think about you, then step one, go back to step one. I think it says it all. It's a simple program. How more simple can you get? Letting go of all of this self. It's really, the problem is the self. We were brought up the way people taught us when we were children, with the commercials, with the food, with the way we should act. We should be good in school, academically, or good in sports. And it's all corrupted our brain into thinking that it's all about us. The ego, we built up the ego. And we wonder why we're miserable. Because when things don't go our way, we get really upset. Meanwhile, not realizing all the time things are our way. Same way, again, I go back to the food. People, they text me or say, oh, I binged yesterday. Or, if you're not binging right now, all we have is the present. Let go of the past or the future. I always say planning the past or regretting the future, right? So this is our problem. We're into the self blocking out that sunlight of spirit. We're into the ego, which brings us into the self-centered fear. We're in fear. And with our addiction, we're fearing the food. We say, oh no, this food is just so, whatever we fear the most, we're giving it power. If you go somewhere and you say, I'm having a problem with this addiction, or I'm having a problem with this this person in my life, I used to call up 10 people. Look, my mother-in-law is somebody in my life, or my boss at work is a problem. It never helped because I was making the problem more real. The problem was in my thinking, my perception. When I change my perception, the world around me changes. So my perception towards the food now is this, right? I'm glorious in the way I eat. When I eat just delicious foods, all wholesome. One ingredient is what I do, whole food, plant-based. I eat the vegetables, the fruit, I eat grains, rice and beans. I mean, I just, but not the processed type, which has tons of salt, oil, and sugar, and is like 3 times the calories of normal, or what they have in the restaurants. The restaurants are the worst place in the world, what they put in the food. But I wouldn't have it. It's just, to me, I look at it now, and my taste buds are so attuned to having such healthy things in life. That's the perception change. Again, I was on that diet. It was called the Gray Sheet for a year. I was so miserable. I made it all about the diet, the 3 meals a day, weighing it, this food, that food. I was miserable every day. That day finally came. I lost all the weight. And then I got down to the weight. I said, it's okay. It's not the greatest thing in the world that I lost the weight, but my mind wasn't changed. Amazing. Imagine being on a diet that you love. Imagine every day waking up and glorifying that you're going to have a nice drink of water. Imagine glorifying you're going to have, people say they want sugar. You want sugar? There's sugar in this, but you know how healthy this is because it has a fiber? This is the real sugar. What you eat is processed sugar. They take it, synthetic ones, or even from the sugar cane, is processed. When food is processed, like you take oil, when oil is processed, then what happens is the food becomes, hold 1 minute, just everyone could just wait a minute, I have to do something. My computer's running out of power here. I have to plug it in. It's a good thing I saw that because we'd all be kicked off the meeting. All right, we're all right now. All of a sudden, the red light came on. I forgot to put the plug in. But anyway, all right, the computer ain't got the power, right? It's got to do a step 3. We get the power. So anyway, but look, again, hey, let's relate it to that. Plug into the power. It's all in here, right? So the real source of all of what I'm saying here, and that's where I say our true selves, right? When we get humility, when we work these steps, I talked about step 1. Step 2 said I had to be restored to sanity, but step 3 says how to do it. Just letting go of all of this nonsense in our lives, letting go of everything we knew, the old self, being renewed. On page 63, it talks about that. So anyway, and this is what happens. If we go to page, I was on it and I didn't finish. On page 84, it tells us what happens. This is a 10-step promise. It's amazing how it relates to me directly to addiction to food. Here they talk about alcohol. Again, this meeting is for all addictions, by the way. It's for alcoholism, drug addiction, people addiction, gambling addiction, whatever your addiction is in life. But we a lot of people here for the food addiction. 75% of our country is overweight and obese. So we have a big problem with that. So it says on the bottom of page 84, as we cease fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol, even food, even drugs. So all the time I was fighting it, trying to take control. And when you go into war and you fight people, there's resistance and it makes it worse. If you like the video and want to spread the message, press the like and subscribe button. Thank you. There's a path it's called in Eastern philosophy, the path of least resistance. For by this time, sanity will have returned. I had to realize I was insane. I was still insane when I tried to control it by all the diets. The billion-dollar diet industry was telling me how to control it. They were sending me those smaller morsels of poisonous food with all the poisons in them and saying, hey, restrict it and have all of this crazy synthetic food. They say, oh, we let you have desserts. The desserts are all, there's no nutrients in them. It's all processed food with all 3 times the calories of the salt, oil, and sugar, and it creates all the problems and the diseases. For this time, sanity will have returned. We will seldom be interested in liquor or food. When we take these steps in our lives and we have our beauty and love for nature and people and we become one, we don't need to go to something finite like the food or the alcohol. We go to fairs and what do? We just think of the food. All day long, we're making food a higher power. But we have a solution here. We have a solution. It says in the big book to all our problems, food being one of them, alcohol, drugs. We recoil from as from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally. I had to realize the insanity of my thinking. The insanity to think that this material thing, whether it was money, success, or food, it just never worked. Anybody here knows that it didn't work. It doesn't work. We will find this will happen automatically. After a while, through repetition of this thinking, we don't have to think. I don't have to think anymore what to drink. It's not even, or the fruit. I don't have to think anymore when I want something sweet. Or how about the tasty vegetables and all of those things that are so tasty? Whatever you eat, it's the junk you put on it. That's the problem. We will see that our new attitude towards liquor or food has given us without any thought on our part. It just comes. This is the miracle. I never believed in miracles. When we get centered, God gave us this miracle of the centeredness, of the real. We'll intuitively know the answer to our problems. Right? We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as that we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. Isn't this amazing? Position neutrality. So all these years we've been trying to fight it. We were neutral. We were out there fighting it like a war. But we kept on, we maybe won the battle, as they say, but we lost the war. So there's a whole new way of perception we have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. There's only one way. Dr. Silkworth said, and throughout we agnostics, he realized there's only one solution. And again, the doctors and the scientists at the time, he said, they couldn't figure it out. They couldn't figure out the solution to alcoholism, and food addiction, because I always go back to the Bible, written, 5,000 years ago, it says gluttony. This was around all the time. Today, it's much, much more intense because of corporations and what they put in the food. So we really have a problem. So we really need a spiritual solution. And what I say today, we're over 80 years later since Dr. Silkworth wrote the Doctor's Opinion, guess what? If you want anybody who wants to tell me we still haven't found a solution, even though we went to the moon and the internet and all these scientific advances, if anybody knows, come on the meeting and tell me what the solution is. All the surgery, all the diets, all the psychology, the therapy, or whatever it is, it never works. 95% of you sitting here know it. And the other 5% who happen to work with are miserable. I was miserable. I told you, I lost all the weight. I finally gained it all back. Now I won't be able to gain the weight. Now I'll stay. Oh, by the way, just to mention quickly, I had all the major diseases, the heart diseases, the type 2 diabetes, the high blood pressure. You name it, I had it. Skin rashes, whatever it is. It all went away. All went away. This is going back. They wanted to do surgery on my heart like 12, over 12, maybe 15 years ago. I ran out of the office. I was heavy. I was overweight. I was eating terrible foods. All of a sudden, it scared me. I changed my diet, and guess what? Here I am 15 years later, and my health is perfect. I mean, I don't take one. I was on 10 drugs. I'm not taking one drug today. Not one. This is the amazing thing, because the reason was that food is what causes all these illnesses mainly. And I'm not saying for everybody. I'm not saying if you're on medication, you shouldn't take it. But I know from my own experience and what I read, I can tell you one thing. It's really amazing how many diseases are, and all the problems and that we have are from the, and by the way, I happen to be a registered pharmacist. That's what my trade is. And I can tell you, medications to a degree, medications is a symptom. It's treating a symptom. Okay, they do work, but they also have side effects. We like to get to the cause. And it says in the big book, getting the root and the branch, right? Same with being unhappy. My taking medications or drugs or alcohol relieved my unhappiness temporarily for a moment, but I didn't get down to the real root of the problem. It was my stinking thinking. We have a way out. We have the solution here. 12-step program. By the way, put information in the chat, whatever you like, and list meetings there. We have a great family here. You'll hear the different people coming on, and leave your number there to sponsor people. You came to the right place. We have meetings here Tuesday and Sunday mornings at 7 a.m. Again, we're like a big family, so if you want to find the answer to your problems, we'll go through the big book here. We discuss all of these things and on the meeting here. So if anybody'd like to share, I see we have Jesse first. Go ahead, Jesse. Okay, do we get that we just have to let go? This whole program, we can have that spiritual awakening. It's all about getting out of the self, and that's why I said our true selves. Buried in all of the nonsense in our brain, and our stinking thinking is the real answer. It's in here. That's all that's the whole program. if anybody wants to know in a nutshell. There's not much more to say. If you get that during this meeting, you had a spiritual awakening. If you get it, if the light bulb comes on, you don't need to practice it right now. Just understand our thinking is crazy because it's coming from what society told us. It's coming from the need for material things, enjoying the things, the senses on the outside. Go and enjoy it, but understand the truth. We're buried in all this nonsense people are telling us with the food and the corporations. When I see people and work with them, when they finally, some people in the program, 10, 20, 30 more years, when they do a real step one, when we realize we're powerless and just letting go of all this crazy thinking, we were created to be joyful and happy, not to think about, what I'm going to do today, yesterday, tomorrow, or even we're talking about, Jesse had a great share, it was interesting with the food, but, we can't go back there. That was yesterday. We can glorify it today and think of something with like I say, with the water. But if we go back into the remorse, shame, and guilt, we're back into the addiction. That's pretty amazing. I started to realize that, and in this program, it tells us that we are perfection. And if I go to page 64 in the big book, it says on the bottom, near the bottom of the page, it says, when the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically.